Today, we're speaking with Dr. Kevin Fleming. He's the founder and CEO of Catapult. Catapult's an organization that provides educators with access to the world's thought leaders through masterclasses. Kevin is a TEDx speaker and author of multiple books. He's a girl dad, lover of bacon and dad jokes. He's challenging the future of work through challenging education. Join us as we discuss education reform, professional development, the importance of defining, setting, and executing goals. This is one episode you do not want to miss. Let's jump in, shall we? People Work is proud to present Strategic Shift, a podcast dedicated to exploring the future of work. Thank you for joining us as we hear stories of bold decisions and workforce innovations. I'm Christy Honeycutt, and I'm your host. Dr. Fleming, thank you so much for joining us today. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Southern California today.
How's the weather?
It is often beautiful, but the freeways are populated, so it's a wash. Pick your poison. But it's a beautiful day. I live in Southern California. I'm inland in between Los Angeles and Palm Springs.
Awesome. Well, I'm in hot, heavy Texas, and I don't like to leave the house because of all the Californians that moved here has jammed up our traffic.
Well, you're welcome, and I'm sorry. Yeah.
We love all of you equally.
That's right.
Well, thank you for joining us, Kevin. It's so nice to have you on, and we are so excited to jump into the future of work with you. So can you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you guys do?
Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of Catapult Masterclass, and we started 6 years ago, really focused on changing the way that both high schools and colleges look at education, how they look at our students, how they, historically we prepared students for graduation, and our mission is to prepare students for life after graduation and to make sure they actually have what we call the 3 C's. Want them to have clarity of who they are, confidence about their next step after graduation, and a competitive advantage to actually secure what it is that they're trying to achieve. Too many students graduate with other C's, C's like being clueless. So we're trying to flip that narrative. So we are a professional development company in the education sector that is really looking at, we're not student facing, we're for the employees, the teachers, the faculty, the administrators, the counselors, really helping them understand how the landscape of education has and is shifting. And so I have the pleasure of working with over 40 of truly world-class education disruptors, speakers, and thought leaders. And so we work together to change people's mindsets.
I really love that you do that. And I have a lot of friends, and we spoke before the recording that my son is a director at a university, and I have a lot of friends that are teachers. And every time it's back to school, there's one thing that I see just generally happen. I'm curious if you've seen it too. But suddenly you've got the wives of the partners of the teachers reaching out to their community on Facebook and their friends and texting saying, hey, we're back to another school year. We're looking to fill up our classroom with educational things. Here's the deficiencies we have. Would you guys mind pitching in? And that's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
A lot of these students are showing up and they don't have the basics in class. I mean, heck, I remember going to school. I was thinking about this the other day when we used to have to carry our books home. And they were heavy, right?
Yeah.
And you had to do the cover for the book with the, you had the fancy stuff that you could go buy or
the paper. Yeah, we used to go to Vaughn's and get the paper bag book covers to decorate. Absolutely.
Oh, well, you were spoiled because I got wrapping paper from Christmas that we tried to make. I begged my mom, I'm like, moving forward, can we get kind of polka dotted wrapping paper or something that doesn't have Santa on it? So when I have to wrap my books, I don't look like a hobo. So, but our education system is lacking in a lot of ways. I think it's one way it's not lacking, and your proof of the pudding is the hearts of our community that wants to serve and elevate this population. And look, Kevin, I know you've got tons of accolades. I know you're a TEDx speaker. I know you've written some books. You had a viral video book thing kind of go. Can you tell us about that? Because I didn't have a chance to watch the whole thing, but I'm super excited.
So this is my anniversary. I've been in education for 25 years, and 20 of those have been in career and technical education. And so years ago, I started producing animated videos that would help take these otherwise complicated concepts like labor market, wage ranges, and things. And I found that the medium of animation made it palatable and digestible and accessible for people to understand. So yeah, on my YouTube channel and my website, I have over 80 different videos now over the last 20 years, and they're conversation starters. Some are for parents, some are for students, some are for counselors, some are for school board members, but they all start a local conversation around the purpose of education, the deficiencies, the gaps, but most importantly, so what do we do? How can we improve career readiness and blur the walls of our classroom to work with employers? So yeah, I've done a TEDx, I've done 4 books. Everything has been around creating resources for the field to shift the way we do education. Because coming from the inside, as a teacher, a college dean, a college vice president, and so I saw firsthand, frankly, let me just say this, Chrissy, like everyone's well intentioned. Like I don't think I've ever
Oh,
met an
yes.
educator who is like malicious.
Hmm.
Like no one wakes up and says, let's screw students today. Let's have programs that don't prepare them for life. Like no one does that intentionally. But yet we're in a system, to your point, where
Mm.
students don't have the supplies they need, teachers don't have the resources they need. We invest more per pupil than any other industrialized nation, but it's not trickling down to the classroom where they need it. And then we have students where we've increased the college graduation rate and high school graduation rates almost every year for 50 years. Yet there's a skills gap, there's a wills gap,
Oh,
there's a
hmm.
lack of trained folks. Then we get all the other things, quiet quitting and the job churn and the turnover crisis and, the silver tsunami and all these other things that have catchy titles. But the core root with all of them is that we have human beings and jobs that are not aligned with who they are. And so if
Oh, boom.
like that's the like if I were king
Mic
of the
drop.
world, mic drop. If you said, Kevin, here's the magic wand, like how would you
Mhm.
reform and change education? I'd say, look, let's just align who people are with what they do. And we're very good overcomplicating things, but it's really just that simple. How do we make sure they're in the courses that speak to their heart, that get them excited? How do we make sure they're in extracurricular and work-based learning activities that equip them and give them skills and information? How do we give them mentors and teachers and facilitators that guide them so that every student who graduates has at least an answer to what are you going to do after graduation instead of the opposite? That is unfortunately too common a case.
It's very interesting. There's lots of community building that's happening out in the world. There's one called Career Spring that does something similar where they have some mentors, but they have some unique studies that they were sharing that had what they were finding was first generation. I'm curious with your background. First generation college students, college graduates, were having a much harder time launching than second, third, and fourth generation and they cite it to affluency, networks, fraternities, sororities, the different things that maybe a first gen college student wouldn't know anything about. And so they're leaning in, trying to, what they do is they provide a lot of mentorship and coaching for graduates that are getting out of college. So there is definitely a need. And it's interesting how it's being addressed. But are you seeing that there's a division like Career Spring saw between, second, third, fourth generation graduates versus a first gen graduate?
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do around social capital. So we have a Catapult Masterclass that's led by Julia Freeland Fisher that talks specifically about this using recent-ish data from LinkedIn. And whether it's very common if they're a first-generation college student, it's common they don't have those networks or the social capital connections to be able to launch them well after high school. But it also has a lot to do with um, not just the zip code where they're from, but what their major is. Less so about where they go, but more so about the experiences they have while they're in higher education, and then the majors that they are equipped in terms of their labor market vibrancy. But it's less so now about what I'm finding around second, third, fourth generation, but it's more about what was their intentionality while they're in school about preparation for life after graduation. So whether it's high school or post-secondary, if the goal is good grades and a transcript, they'll be less prepared as opposed to if the goal is mentorships, work experience, social capital, work-based learning, and a transcript. That's a totally different student experience. And footnote, as a fraternity man and a volunteer with my national fraternity, big fan of extracurriculars, student activities, Greek life, and all
Mhm.
of that. But there's obviously a spectrum of experiences in getting some that are insular versus those that really prepare you for life after graduation.
What you make me think of, and I don't know that this happens today. I mean, my boys are 30 and 32 to be fair, so I'm not really in the school system in this moment. But I remember going to school in middle school and you didn't have a choice. You had electives, but one of those electives was kind of teaching you how to be an adult, whether it was home ec or mechanics or, you know what I mean? It was the basic tactical things. And then as I've watched kind of things progress and how schools are leaning in, I don't know how our children are going to get that because they're taking phones out of the classroom, right? And if you don't have AI today, you're not going to be able to move forward. I mean, I think I'm curious what your thought is on that, but I'm seeing a lot of changes in the school system, public and private, both ways, right? And it's
Mhm.
like, to your point, how do we prepare them for the real world?
So, so your comment reminds me, I did my second master's at University of Redlands, and I worked there for a few years in California. And we had a class we offered. It was a 1 month class called Real World 101. And it was phenomenal. It was a fun class. We had a lawyer came in and talk about signing a contract for like getting an apartment. We had a car salesman come in and talk about buying a car. We had a jeweler come in and talk about buying a ring. We had a financier come in and talk about compounding interest and balancing a checkbook and all these things. And that dates me a little bit. We talked about balancing a checkbook. No one does that anymore. But here's this class that only 30 students got out of thousands at the university. And it was such a stark, everyone was like, this is the best class I've ever taken. And we could very easily list, and everyone listening right now can think of all the things we wish we learned in school or
Oh,
things we wish our students would have been taught in school, but they're not. But they're getting that extra year of math analysis and esoteric poetry that they're never actually going to most likely apply. But they're not learning financial literacy, ethics of AI. They're not learning entrepreneurship skills and other things, project management tenets that might actually be helpful. So I think as an educator, it's fair to say there is a divide between the canon that we teach and the required courses that we offer
mm,
versus the skills and knowledge and abilities that students actually need. And I think the challenge is when we pretend or we misperceive that school will teach you everything you need. And it won't. It's an important structure. Do we want critical thinkers? Of course, Christy, we do. Do we want people to understand basic reading and writing and interpersonal, teamwork? Yes, of course. But we also want them to have these other things like time management, goal setting, proper nutrition, things that schools oftentimes, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, some places are doing it well, but most aren't. So if I could rewrite the curriculum, let's have a course in adaptability. Let's have a course in lifelong learning. Let's have that real world 101 course actually be the canon. And yeah, we'll throw in a little chemistry and geometry, of course. But I think we've gotten so far away from preparing people to be good citizens, trying to make them critical
yes.
thinkers and academics and the university for all mantra. But what fascinates is we have this university for all track and a lot of universities who then prepare them for graduation. But again, very few programs really sit down and say, what's the profile of a graduate look like that will be successful in an ever changing, constantly churning, tech infused reality? And I'll end this with one little stat I heard recently. When I was in school, like your 30-year-olds, I'm in my mid 40s, but like your children, it used to be you would have about 6 to 8 jobs in your life.
Mhm.
Now it's 24 projected
Is
jobs.
it that high?
It's that high. And
Wow.
think about it. They say now with AI and tech, people have a job every 2 to 3 years. Which is about right. And the working lifespan of someone with lifespans approaching 80 and beyond, people are going to be working around 60-ish years. So you start saying, well, 2 to 3 years, if I'm in the marketplace, 55 to 65 years. So we're looking at 24 jobs throughout someone's career, and that could span 5 or 6 different industries, mind you.
Yeah.
So school is no longer charged to prepare someone for a job or a career. That's an antiquated goal. So it's about how do we redefine the goal to make them prepared for a series of loosely coupled or loosely connected jobs that are all in line with what their personality, their aptitude, their passions, their interests. Like that becomes a different compass than just saying, here's this arbitrary list of courses that was created 80 years ago that we still want you to check off before you graduate. Like it doesn't make any sense.
I just used to get upset about home ec that everyone thought it was a girls only class. I'm like, why do girls only need to know how to bake a cake and do the dishes, right? But it was very kind of segregated by sex. I'm going to say I'm going to read the quote because I feel like your quote is very timely for what you just said. But you have a quote that's my favorite. How we define the goal defines the way we play the game.
Yes.
So Tell us a little bit about that quote, because I think you summed it up, but it's such a powerful quote.
Yeah. So for my second book is called Redefining the Goal. And I think we often will have a well-intended goal that's actually not phrased correctly to get the desired result. So for example, in my pursuit, I'm a first generation college student, going back to what you were saying. And so my parents wanted me to have a successful life. So they said, go to college, major anything, just get the degree and it'll pay off and it'll open up doors for you and all the things we tell students, right? So I got not one, but two bachelor's degrees and not one, but two master's degrees. And Christy, I found myself at that point underemployed, not unemployed, but I was working in a job that didn't require the degrees I had gotten at a cost
Mm-hmm.
that I literally was drowning in student loan debt. I couldn't afford my Sally Mae payments. Uh, Little footnote of a quip. When I got married, my wife signed the marriage certificate and I signed it. And then she asked me, where does Sally Mae sign? Because they're in this thing too, she says, because I had so much. She came in debt free and I brought in all this student loan debt. She would remind me of that for many years. And but we do that under the belief that it'll pay off. Well, so the goal for me was get a degree. Just get many. And so I thought, oh, then if one degree is good, multiple is better. Finding then myself, oh, that didn't pay off. I was drowning in student loan debt, unemployed, couldn't pay my bills. And frankly, I felt kind of screwed that I'd done what society and my parents told me to do. So the goal should not just be graduate with anything at any cost, which is what a lot of students think is the goal because they think that'll magically open up opportunity, and it won't. As a college vice president, I would see students graduating constantly with the diploma in hand, having zero idea who they were, what they were good at, or what they were going to do. And that is not a success story. That's not student success when, okay, we can check the box that they enrolled and persisted and graduated, and that's what we're measured on. That's what we're funded by in schools. But that doesn't mean we're actually doing them a good service and preparing them for what they're going to do next. So I think we do have to redefine the goal. And I've spent a lot of time years ago looking at personalized learning and customized learning, not just for the student, but for us as individuals, right? And so I think how we define our own goal of learning absolutely changes how we play the game. So like as an administrator, I define the goal as, well, it's enroll students, have them retain, and then have them graduate. And that was the goal. And then I realized, nope, we're screwing them. Like we're failing all these students with a paper. So he says, what if
Yes.
we redefine the goal in actually preparing their aptitude? Identifying their aptitude, preparing them so we equip them to be the best version of themselves for whatever that walk of life is afterwards. And I redefined the goal for my department. I said, you know what? Instead of just preparing them for graduation and to go on to further college, I says, what if we prepare them either for enrollment in higher ed, for enlistment in the military, for entrepreneurship, for an earn and learn apprenticeship program, or for employment? Like what if we had a multiplicity of goals, all of which would be perceived as helpful and valuable and contributory? And that changed the way we played the game. It was no longer just about getting them to commencement. And by the way, if anyone listening ever sees me at a conference, I made up these little stickers that have that quote on it. So feel free to grab me. I always carry a few in my bag, and I'll give you a sticker with that quote.
I'm going to need your VP of stickers to mail me my stickers. So
Happily,
audience,
happily.
Kevin has a VP of stickers, and yes, you heard me right. She is a doll, and she is going to grow up to be a CEO someday, I think. But tell the audience a little bit about your secret weapon.
So when my daughter was in first grade, she was helping me organize some stickers that I would hand out at keynote engagements and things. And she asked me, she goes, "Can I get paid for this?" And I thought, you know what? If you promise to inventory them, then yeah. And then she asks at 7 years old, she goes, "Well, what's my title?" And so she asks, "Can I be the vice president of stickers?" And I says, "You know what? You sure can." So I put her on payroll, $50 a month, and so when she graduates from college, she'll have like 15 years of work experience. And so yeah, she organizes all the stickers in the garage for sure.
Oh, I bet she's the most popular girl in her class.
She's amazing and I love her, and some days want to throw her out the window, and that's how this works. But no, she's great, and she does her job. She earns her monthly paycheck. Yeah.
I love that. It's just this good parenting, right? You are modeling what others need to see, and it's really good parenting. It's good leadership.
Well, thank you.
So we've talked a lot about, and I think this is your heart too. Obviously, your college. My son is first generation college grad. I did not have the opportunity. We all have things in life that come up. For me personally, Kevin, I'll just share this with you and our audience. I had a full paid scholarship to college. and got cancer my senior year in high school.
Oh my.
So I was given a very quick, at 17, life decision that I had to make, which was start a family or never have children. And so I obviously have two beautiful boys, and I don't regret that. So life presents differently for everybody. So for those individuals that aren't college bound, by choice or not, what is your guidance or recommendation, and how are you guys leaning in to help that population?
Yeah. I think whether they're college bound, military bound, employment bound, entrepreneurship bound, internationally bound, service bound, whatever they think they're going to do. My first point is to help them understand that that'll be the first thing they do, but they're not committing to any one thing forever. I mean, I've been in front of students and I would say, you don't have to decide what you're going to do the rest of your life. Just make a choice of what you want to do first. And I see their
Mm,
shoulders kind of drop because there's so much pressure around like, what are you going to do the rest of your life? And it's like, no, just what do you want to do first? And I think so A, let's dissolve the overwhelm with our anxiety ridden youth and already let them just realize they're not making a lifelong decision. Very few people in their 50s are doing what they said they were going to do when they were 17. So let's acknowledge that. But secondly, I would say the secret recipe that I have learned is really to do first deep self-exploration. Who are you? And who are you really? Like, are you doing personality assessments? Are you taking aptitude assessments? Are you reading, yeah, Strength Finders 2.0, taking the Myers-Briggs, taking the DISC and the Holland Code and all these things to really understand, like, what are your strengths, your abilities, your aptitudes, your where do you find flow? Like really understanding who you are, step one. And then step two is, and then look at all the opportunities out there in the world. And not just looking at the job titles, but what are the problems in the world that need solving? What are the opportunities to contribute? And then the secret sauce, Christy, is just aligning those two things with who you are, with the problems out in the world. And then regardless of the title or the next step or the pay, like you show me a youth, and I'll say youth, but someone in their teens or 20s that is committed about solving a problem in the world, that is willing to get up and work at it. I'll show you someone who has intrinsic motivation, who will show up to school, show up to that conference, learn that extra industry credential, show up early at work, stay late, volunteer for the extra assignment because they care and they have a clear why. You know, they have that direction of what they're doing all this for.
yeah.
And that's the student we want, that's the children we want, that's the employee that we want. And so that's the advice I would give is A, dissolve the overwhelm and know you'll have many steps, but most importantly, align who you are with intentionality with what you do next. And if we continue to do that throughout our lifespan, then we'll always feel, well, frankly, find meaning in what we do.
I know you're my people because you use words like flow and intentionality. That's how I know you're my people. You also reminded me, do you remember the song We Are the World,
Oh, yeah.
Ethiopia? Back, I know I'm older than you, but so my school, I'll never forget this. I remember this. Remember the old Folgers coffee mugs, the 10 mugs?
Yes.
So I told my dad, I said, there's kids like me that are starving. I have to help. And my dad goes, what do you want to do? I go, I got to raise money. And he goes, how are you going to do it? I go, I need a Folgers can. And he goes, okay. So he goes and gets me a Folgers can. And I said, I'm going to walk the neighborhood and see if people will donate. And if they won't donate, I'm going to see if they need help with their yard.
Oh, I
So
love this.
I literally walked our entire neighborhood back when it was safe to do so, and with my little brothers, 3 years younger than me. And we went from house to house. And I said, I'm trying to feed the children in Ethiopia. And people would give me change. They would give me all
I
these
love it.
things. And one lady said, you know, I'm willing to donate, but I want you to work for it. And I said, okay, what do you need help with? She goes, I need you to help me pull these weeds. It was a little lady. And so I said, absolutely. I got there and I pulled the weeds and we worked hard the whole day. So we get home and I think I had, I don't know, this is in the 80s. I think I had maybe 50 something dollars, which is pretty good for,
Yeah. It's a great haul
going
for
around.
one day.
I think so. And my
Yeah.
dad, so my brother wanted to go skating back when we would all go skating and skate in circles to music, right, with a DJ.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad's like, okay, yeah, you can go. But he did the typical dad test. And he said, but you guys are going to have to use your earnings today. My brother goes, 3 years younger, so we'll give him grace. Okay. And I said, no, we can't, Dad, because the children in Africa won't be able to eat. And he loves to tell that story to this day
I love
because
it.
it showed my heart at such a young age and like doing the right thing and integrity. And sure thing, we took the money and we took it to the school and we donated it because they were doing that. But you're right. I think everybody shows up differently, and you know, um, everybody's made for something specific and there's a purpose. I was on a podcast last night that I was being interviewed for, and it felt like therapy, honestly. But they were talking about, how did you get to where you are and the different things. And they said, well, you have a theme throughout your career. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I had a theme throughout my career, but it was the same. And so my strength has played over and over again in every position I've ever been in. And had been able to maybe navigate or understand that earlier and had access to what you're building and what you've built, maybe I'd be in a different spot. But it's cool to see how your strengths play out, and they do drive you towards your purpose.
Yeah, I love that story and about you with the can of Folgers, and what you just said resonates obviously deeply with me, because I believe as well that everyone has gifts and strengths and they're not all the same. So to have any cookie cutter approach to whether it's talent management or secondary education or post-secondary education, it's it's folly and ludicrous, and arguably it's educational malpractice to treat
Ooh.
everybody the same, because they're not. And so imagine a world where we actually paused and gave the space and created the process for people to get to know themselves a little bit better as they're growing up. And we're always changing, right? So no one is the same at 14 that they are at 34. But how do we teach them that process of self-identifying what are those strengths and aptitudes? And then imagine an educational culture or a new employee induction orientation program where strengths were identified and then invested in and given the space to blossom. And great companies do this where they say, okay, let's put everyone, what's the old phrase, get the right people on the bus. And Jim Collins talked about this, about ensuring people are really aligned with their gifts and strengths. Um, there's not enough of that, I think, Christy. I think too often we still say, okay, here's your job description. Here's your courses as a student you have to take. Just execute, just perform, regardless of what you've done, who you are, what you bring to the table, what you learn, regardless of your diverse opinions, your passions or interests, regardless of what got you out of bed in the morning, execute this task list. And I think that's where we have an opportunity to really see each other again as humans, and
Mm,
to
yes.
realign our workforce and our classrooms with a three-dimensional human being that's before us, and not with the arbitrary previously drafted learning outcomes or job descriptions that we want them to cram themselves into in that mold. And I think successful institutions and schools, they do that, and they see people for the three-dimensional that they are.
I absolutely adore what you said, but I just got PTSD because I remembered I went to a very small high school in Oklahoma, and I'm Native American, so we'll put that out there. And they had us take some sort of an aptitude test, and you're going to die when I tell you what they said I should be. So it comes out with a recommendation of this could be your career. I, to this day, still think I got pranked. Mine came out that I should consider being a bull rider.
Oh my.
Yeah, a bull rider. I was like, what? How did I get this? Like, I answered, I love animals, like all these things. But it came out a bull rider. And I don't remember what that was that they had all the seniors take it. And to this day, I don't know if it was a real thing or a joke. Other people got like a nurse or, guys, I'm going to be 51 next week, so I'm a little older. But it was all these like, occupations. And I'm like, is bull riding a thing? So
Well, you missed the metaphor. You've been bull riding for 30 years.
there
But
you
they
go.
weren't physical animals, they were organizations that
Yes,
required
there we go.
some harnessing, and we've been thrown off a few times, right?
We
Thankfully,
have been
the
thrown off.
aptitude tests of today are far better than they were just a few decades ago. And there's some great ones out there by, of course, U Science and Dreamcatcher program and Paxton Patterson, and there's a lot of companies that are doing great work with that now. And you could do a spiritual lens, you could do a secular, just a interest lens. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But yeah, I'd say pick one or two. The one thing I'll add, Chrissy, is I don't think there's one silver bullet out there that does it like well or best.
Mm,
Sometimes I'm asked like, what do you recommend everyone does? My answer is you just have to do more than one, because each one
right.
has a different slice or a different theoretical framework or a different approach. But when someone does two or three or four of them, then you start to see the overlap. And I don't, hopefully they're not coming out as being a bull rider and vet and other things, but I'm glad that we didn't lose you to the rodeo for too long. I think you're in the chair you need to be in for right now. Yeah,
Well, we're always evolving, that's for sure.
that's right.
It is interesting because as we talk about, taking assessments and getting to know yourself and learning. So I'm a certified meditation coach, which is a really weird thing to be, but I went through coaching, personal
Okay.
coaching. And I just kept getting stuck and I couldn't figure out how to get unstuck. And I knew therapy wasn't the way for me. And so I went and got a personal coach who was definitely the way for me because she's a little bit of a bully. She bullied me a little bit. But going through that experience, and I'll say it saved my life. And what I mean by that is it saved me having an abundant, full, clear-headed life, meaning that she helped me have a new lens. But
Mm,
a lot of people don't have access to that. And a lot of people don't know that they need to. And I remember she told me, she said, this is why I got the meditation certification. She said, you need to go sit down with yourself, just be really quiet. And I go, well, can I have the TV on? No. I said, can I have the radio on? No. Can I be reading a book? Christy, I need you to sit with yourself and be quiet. Do I need to shut my eyes? She goes, Christy. And I go, Kevin, I literally didn't know.
yeah.
I was like, what do you mean sit with myself? What am I supposed to do? And she laughed at me, but I got really, really good at it. And then I got really, really good at it. And then I realized there's something to this to give
Yeah.
yourself space and take a breath and kind of like let things flow. And so then I went and got my certification like a crazy person because I wanted to know everything. And typical me, I took the test first and I was like, oh, I passed it. And then I had to go do the classwork. So it's however you get to where you are. I'm curious what your thought is because a lot of these people, they don't have mentors, they don't have coaches, they might not be able to, if we look at the skill base that we have out there, there is a significant skill gap. We've been missing the skill gap for 30 years.
Yeah.
It's not gotten any closer. It's still there because we've told everybody you have to go to college. And now we have a significant skill gap and the robots aren't going to come and save us in all of these things. And there's a lot of these skill sets that are dying. Like I know you and I both are car lovers. There's a lot of skill sets that are dying in cars where
Yeah.
you've got these craftsmen that are literally 60 and 70 years old and no one's learning the skill. And what advice do you have to those, or what's your answer to that population that needs to identify the gap and they need to figure out what's now? Like,
Yeah.
how can I elevate for what's now?
There's so much there you just said I want to unpack. This is 3 hours long, right? This podcast. So first I want to go back half a beat. I tried meditation before, and it wasn't. It's not for everyone, but I tried it, and actually I have a forthcoming masterclass on Catapult on meditation because I do believe it has power and value to create that moment for people to pause because we rarely do. And so first I want to say I think that is kudos on you. And I think it's very important that people learn how to be still and turn off our phones and be quiet. I'm reminded of a quote from fellow education reformer John Dewey, who once said, "We do not learn from experiences, but we learn from reflecting on our experiences."
Nice.
And I think there's power in pausing and saying, okay, I just learned something, or I did something, or I had a conversation with a friend, or I learned something at school, or I failed at work, or I missed a project deadline, or whatever it is. The real power of growth, the power of becoming a better person, is to then pause and say, okay, let me reflect on that and what did I learn from it? And how would I do it different? I mean, sometimes I wish I could be like in Back to the Future with Marty McFly and get in my DeLorean and go to the previous version of myself. And have you ever wanted like to relive a day? Like I wish I could
Yes.
do that meeting over or that day over again, right? And
Yes.
and while we can't time travel yet, I do think it's important to reflect on those things because then the next time a similar situation comes up, the neurons in our brains, the synapses are then formed in a way to then respond differently than what we did before. So I believe in the power of pausing and meditation and prayer and just reflection to sit there and I fail sometimes, but I try, Christy, every day to say, okay, like what happened today and what could I do different? And in fact, every night when my wife and I pray with our daughter, we all go around and the three of us ask, what are we grateful for? And we're trying to just have that reflective moment of what are we grateful for in the world? What was a good thing that happened today? And we end every day like that. And so to your question, I think one of the things we can all do is pause. and
Yeah.
just think. Everyone, so whether it's through meditation, whether it's through a walk without earbuds on, just a quiet meditation with the door closed, to just think about where are you, what's been going well, what do you want to do, how can you give your many gifts and be a light to others, and then I would encourage you to put words on it, like try to articulate how you felt and what you did and where you want to go next. I mean, my fourth book is called Words Are Your Superpower, because I think there's power in language and how we frame things, right?
Yes.
Whether it's framing our goal or and using our words, or framing what we learned, or framing what went wrong. I don't believe in artificial labels, but I think there's power in the terminology and the linguistic power of saying something. I'm also a big fan of affirmations in the morning, and like setting the day correctly by saying, what your day is going to be and what your attitude is going to be, because we can manifest such things in our life. There's a lot of science behind it. It's not chakra crystal stuff. There's some science here as well for those listening. But your question, my advice would be, this is a very broken, fragmented, polarized world with a future in our economy that is uncertain, and no one's crystal
No.
ball is working. And so if we accept the premise that we all have gifts, and we accept the premise that we'll do many jobs throughout our life, and if we accept the premise that the world will constantly be changing, then the only conclusion that I've come to is that we have to learn how to continue to learn, how to unlearn what we were previously taught, and how to continuously be conscious about how we evolve ourselves and how we redefine the goal for ourselves, because that will determine how we play the game.
Very, very well said. And, for those of you listening that can't sit still, because I was one of those people, I did learn there's another modality. It's called, it's basically active meditation.
Ooh,
So
what's that?
if you're running, like turn everything off, just run, but you can get into a zone. I'm learning to drive a race car. I can tell you that is definitely the clearest my head has ever been. When you're on the
Wow.
track and you're doing 107 coming up to a corner, you're not thinking about anything. You're in the moment, right? So you're able to just kind of like let everything go and let your brain kind of be for a moment.
Wow.
So there is active meditations that you can do, but you have, just like everyone's different, you got to find that thing. I do still think if you can sit still, it pays more dividends, right? Because you don't have to look up and know you got to hit the brakes going into the corner, but you can at least spend a little bit more time there. But if you're not ready, from Coach Christy, just start with running or walking or go stand in the grass barefoot. Just ease into it, but you'll get there. But it was really good guidance from you. I can't wait to see that class.
I love that. And I want, next time I'm in your neighborhood in Texas, I want you to take me on the track. That sounds exceptional. I'd love to try that.
Oh, yeah. I find that that's important to do stuff that scares you too.
Oh, yeah. It's good to get out of your
Yeah.
comfort zone every now and again, for sure.
Well, you learn, and it's nice to be around. It's so great to see people out there pushing their limits, and they know not to push it too far, right? Like their calculated risk, but pushing their limits and then coming in. And what you see is this camaraderie, and you see everybody go, okay, when I hit that corner, I did this. This is what I could do different. And then you have everybody going, well, if you think about doing this, so it's a constant reframe of what you just did and how you could be better. And for me, like that's life.
Yeah.
Right? That's life. That's living. So
What a disappointing life if you only did what you were comfortable doing, and never taking even calculated, if not small, risks to try new things. Yeah, well said, my friend.
Well, Dr. Fleming, it has been an immense pleasure to have you on the show. I know that I got a lot of value from the conversation. I'm sure our audience did as well. If people want to connect with you and learn more about you and your team and your VP of stickers, who should they reach out to?
Catapultmasterclass.com is where we have an army of passionate education disruptors that are happy to partner with you and connect with you if you're trying to change the metrics and the mindsets of your team to really shift the way that we developed the workforce and the communities of tomorrow.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again for your time and holding space for us.
Thank you, Christy. It was a pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Christy Honeycutt. Be sure to like and subscribe to Strategic Shift to ensure you never miss an episode. And tune in next time as we continue to explore innovation and the future of work. Keep shifting.